Hey, happy hour on a Tuesday. It's a special Tuesday. It's a treat for Jackrabbit fans today because our one and only segment and guest, simply one of the best receivers and players in the history of Jackrabbit football, and definitely a part of some really, really high times there. 2017 to 2019, Cade Johnson, the all-time South Dakota State record holder in touchdowns in a game and a season. All-time record holder in kickoff returns in a season. He did that as a freshman and was named to the all-newcomer team. As a sophomore, the all-Mo Valley team. As a junior, he was a first-team All-America. He is top 10 in school history in career receptions for touchdowns, career receptions, period. All-time sixth in single-season receptions and receiving yards. And he's both fourth and seventh place in single season reception yards. So, and a lot of these career marks, he'd be at or near the top had he played his senior season, but he didn't. That was the COVID year of 2020, and he decided to go to the NFL in the spring of 2021. 3 seasons there with the Seahawks, plus a season in the UFL with the Birmingham Stallions. And Cade Johnson, the son of a Husker football great, and a brother of both a Wyoming and Kansas State wide receiver, all wide receivers.
Yep.
With us now in his office in Omaha, where he's now into commercial real estate. So first of all, it's great to have you. I know Jack's fans are already smiling. Some good memories probably came bubbling back just from the overview there. So we appreciate your time. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I just love my Sioux Falls and Brookings. I mean, not as much Vermilion, but I love all my South Dakota people and I miss everybody. So I'm happy to be here. Okay.
So you're now jumping into commercial real estate. You know, you've been a pro football player for about 5 years now. And you explained to me you're not quite done with football, but you're not sure. You're kind of in limbo. So just kind of explain that, and also how you got into commercial real estate with some Omaha sports luminaries.
Yeah, I know this. Yeah, no, it's been a whirlwind. I'm always, just early on in my NFL career, I was raised, my parents have just always been great with finances and long-term plays and all the things. And like I was saying to you, Tyler Lockett kind of got me into real estate, my younger years in Seattle. And then I came back to Omaha and started buying rental houses and seeing just kind of what residential real estate did with me. And after the UFL season, it hit me last year that, I kind of want to get into real estate. This is one of those things that you can do and still hold on to your dreams if you're still kind of teetering on the back end of them. So for me, it was commercial was what stood out for me. And then, I sat down with some companies here, but then my mom's best friend has worked at Collier's in the Omaha branch for 15, 16 years, and she introduced me to Kyle Peterson. And so from then on there, we just kind of hit it off, and Kyle's just been a great, I didn't get to see him as much during baseball season, but every time we get together, he's just always giving me knowledge, and I relate to him so much, and just, life after professional sports, and especially being in the Omaha market, because there's so much money here and opportunity. And, there's just not a lot of people that have got to make it to that level. So we kind of connected, and I kind of just hit the ground running and touching base with all my people, and have talked to, some SDSU folks just about it, and Ryan McKnight, and obviously Coach Jackson, and just, happy to just make introductions and meet new people. And I think the cool thing too about Collier's is we can do deals within the whole, country. And it's cool to just make phone calls to Seattle. And I have a lot of ties there. And I lived in Orange County when I was training for the draft. And I just feel like this world is limitless, and there's just so much to be, discovered and learned. And I'm just excited. I'm young and hungry, and just being a sponge right now. I feel like a rookie in the NFL again. So,
well, by the way, Kyle Peterson, for those who don't know, that don't know their college baseball, for one, He's an Omaha product, baseball star in high school. Then he was a standout at Stanford, played a little pro baseball, but he's been the voice of the College World Series, the main analyst on College World Series broadcasts for ESPN for years, at least a decade. And so I've always wondered, what does he do for a day job in Omaha? Now you've just answered it. He's Cade Johnson's, I don't know if you call him your boss, but there's that. And most people know or remember that Omaha is your hometown, or at least your home area. You grew up officially in Papillion, but you went to school at Bellevue West. Those are both suburbs. Your dad played at Bellevue West before you became a Husker. So you got all this going on, and you're excited, but yet you still can maybe have one foot in the football pool after being a part of the UFL last spring, 2025 spring.
Yeah.
So kind of where's that at? What's your attitude or situation outlook on, you're still in your 20s. You still might have some football to play.
Yeah. I mean, it's so unpredictable. You never really know. I loved my 1 year in the UFL, and, shortly after my UFL season, I had a workout with the Chargers, and it went really well. And I felt like I did everything I could, and it just didn't work out last year. And so that was the, real estate calling. And I'm sitting in the office, and, just the competitor in me, I always kind of just stay in shape and work out. And I've been taking back up hoops and walking my dogs a lot, and just doing little things to just stay in shape and kind of, stay about my athlete ways. And then I'm sitting in the office, and I just remember, so this would have been towards the end of May, beginning of June. And I'm sitting in my bed. We just finished up a hoop session, and my agent calls me, and he's like, "Hey, Harbaugh wants you to do rookie minicamp this week." So I went there for a week, and they ended up keeping me a few days after. And so that was like a month ago. And it's just like the league is just so unpredictable. And my wide receiver coach from Seattle has been in LA for 3 years now. And he was kind of the coach in my career that took me to that next level. And I ended up starting a playoff game for him. And, I was the second leading receiver the year. We didn't make it as far as the Seahawks made it this year, but we made it to the wild card round, and we played the 49ers. So we just have that good connection, and was able to kind of spend a weekend or a week with Mike McDaniel. That was really cool. And then Harbaugh is just a legend. And so just coming from this setting to go there, and I just kind of, I'm just the type of person that I always bet on myself. So I just put my best foot forward, and if something comes of it, that would be really cool. But at the same time, I'm also working on something really cool right now. So
they kind of have you in their mind bank should, they need receivers at some point in the fall. And I mean, but you got a Jim Harbaugh experience. There had to be something that happened during however long you spent there with the Chargers that you got the up close kind of goofiness, kookiness of Jim Harbaugh, or greatness. He's a great coach. But what's your burning memory?
I just think with him, it's like, if you're not talking about football, he doesn't want to talk to you. So he eats, sleeps, and breathes football. And I think, it's just cool because you can see why he has so much success. And, it's either you're with the program or you're not. Like jersey tucked in, you have to have your socks at a certain length. So I just thought that the 2 times I've been there, I'm like, I know how to play for this guy. And then on the same time, it's it's cool to get, I had 3 years with Pete Carroll, and I was one of Pete's guys, and we became super close when I was in Seattle. And just those guys are kind of rivals in the coaching world. So just having those 2 perspectives is just an awesome experience for me. And just, even though I haven't officially been on the Chargers yet, I've spent some time in that locker room and just in those walls in that facility. And so just, learning from him in the short amount of time as well has just been an experience. I feel like I can't take it away. So.
Yeah, well, it's great that you bring up Pete Carroll, because him and Harbaugh, they go all the way back memorable moment when USC was on top of the college football world when
Yep.
Pete Carroll was coaching there, coming off, I think, a national title. And Jim Harbaugh and Stanford whipped him pretty good in the Coliseum and kind of ran up the score, showed no mercy. And the famous handshake where Pete says to Jim, "Dude, what's your deal?" We would definitely find out in the years to come with the Niners and Michigan and now the Chargers what his deal is. You kind of just explained it. But okay, Pete Carroll, you got 3 seasons of him toward the end of his tenure in Seattle, and they were all kind of 500 squads. You mentioned a wild card team, but specifically, Pete, what will you take away from playing for him?
Man, yeah, he's like, besides Stig, I would put him up there with just like one of the best coaches I've ever had, and just the energy that he brings off. And I think the cool experience for me was like going in there as an undrafted free agent. And obviously it wasn't an ideal situation because, I had draft grades and I thought that was going to go different for me. But at the same time, Pete kind of embraces you for the player you are. And he allows you to have a personality. And I think there's a lot of NFL. I know from the stories that I've heard from other people on different teams that, it's like one way or no way. And I think for Pete was just competing and being your best self every day. And I think that just raised the standard of just like not only a football player, but just a person in general. And, when you have the head man talking to everybody, trainers, has great relationship with strength staff, I can see why he's had so much success. And he actually like is out there and you would never guess he's the age he is because he's running up and down the field and whipping the ball and playing catch. And it's just like, it honestly feels like a dream to me now that I'm saying it. And, like you get older and you realize, man, I wish I would have just soaked up some of those years a little bit more. But like when you're in them, it's all about just having fun and just like remembering why we played football. And I just think that was an awesome experience because you don't get that a lot, especially when you're at the highest level and there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, so basically a lot of things people have said about him and playing for him is true. Just the kind of boyish, almost childlike energy and enthusiasm that's contagious. And, so before we get to Cade Johnson's high school, then Jackrabbit career, just to look through, I mean, you've kind of been, perhaps I could call it the NFL ringer, just the experience of you decided not to stick around for that COVID spring 21 season. You go, you make yourself eligible for the draft. You don't get drafted, but you sign undrafted free agent with the Seahawks in May. They waive you in late August, late in training camp, but then they re-sign you to the practice squad. But then around Thanksgiving, they release you, but then they re-sign you a week later. They sign you a future contract in January. And then you kind of went through the same sorts of things in 2022. Cut probably the last cut before the season started in training camp, but practice squad. And then you got to play finally in week 18 against the Rams. You actually caught a couple passes. So we can get into all that. But how would you depict that whole roller coaster ride?
Yeah, I think for me, it was always about just putting my best foot forward. And like when you explain it to me, how you explained it, it like from an outside looking in, you don't see that when you're in it because it's just like any opportunity that you're just like being considered to be even on the practice squad. Like I just know a lot of guys that are out of the league now that would take 1 week of a practice squad. And I think for me is always pushing to want more and like showing up every day. And like, that's the thing is like when you're in those locker rooms, it's just like, it's such a blessing to just be able to show up and go to practice. And I think those little moments is like my younger self, I would just keep telling him to keep showing up and keep going because for me, it was like, like the situation is what the situation is. I can take it and feel bad for myself, or I can take it and make action to it. And so I think a big just theme of my whole story is just showing up. And, I thrive more off of the no's than I do the yeses. And there was a couple times in my career where it could have pivoted and went the other way. But at the same time, I always believed in myself and I knew I could be something. And so for me, that was kind of it. And just showing up and not thinking too hard into things, but just being where my feet are. So,
Yeah, that's a great term, more commonly used these days. It's an impactful one. And that sort of attitude, like I'm guessing some of it comes from your father, Clester, maybe a little John Stiegelmeier there, and maybe your mom. I don't know her. Because that's an incredibly, insanely mature attitude. So yeah, how were you grounded that way?
Yeah, I think just, my two parents, like my dad is very extreme and then my mom is like very loving. And so like I had the best of both worlds. And then on top of that, I attribute a lot of my success to my older brother because, we were 15 months apart and he was the prodigy child and could just do everything. So for my whole life, I was just, really just chasing in his footsteps and I just wanted to be as good as him. And he went to Wyoming and, had a great career there and was able to play with, the league MVP and Josh Allen, and they had a great bond. And I actually saw Josh this past weekend and we were just talking about old times and talking about my older brother. And it just brings joy to me that I can tell, people that he was just a huge success for me and just wanted to be as good as him. And just our parents always like raised us with that blue collar work ethic and, we're from Omaha, chip on our shoulder. Like we were overlooked and I think too, is like that kind of, ties into how Coach Jackson is running the program now at SDSU and just like, Midwestern, just show up and be there. And I can't thank my parents enough for just always pushing us and never settling for where we're at, but always wanting to want more and treat people the right way and all the things. So yeah, my parents are just amazing. I love them.
Well, let's dig into that further. Your father, 1994 and 95, back-to-back national title teams for Nebraska football. You're laughing already. Fans of this program or listeners, I don't know if I want to call them fans, to have to take Nebraska drinks because I somehow weave the Huskers without trying, sometimes just to needle people.
Yeah.
But this is appropriate. I've got, so I'm sure, are you a Husker fan still? Are you a Husker fan?
I'm more of a Husker fan now that I'm not playing anymore.
Sure. Were you a Husker fan growing up?
Yeah, I grew up going to Memorial and
of course,
like people, obviously, no offense to Nebraska, but they haven't been relevant like to the 90s. I'm trying to choose my words correctly so people don't try to like come at me.
Don't worry, Cade. I've got this T-shirt right behind me for those not watching the show on Sioux Falls Live. This team makes me drink. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've got another one that says Saturdays are for pain and sadness.
Yeah.
And another one, my most recent and my favorite is that applies to your dad is we were good in the 90s though. Or did you see us in the 90s?
Yeah.
And you were born 3 years after your father was done at Nebraska, but most people understand. I mean, we're close enough to the border. There were a lot of Husker fans around here catching the wave. Just how big of a deal it was, how dominant they were.
Yeah.
And he had some catches on the 94 national title team, first national title in Osborne's career, first in 23 years. It was such a zenith moment. And then the next year was, some have still voted this the number one college football team of all time.
Yeah.
It's certainly probably the most dominant. They averaged 40 points per victory. They averaged 30 points per victory against the four top 10 teams that they played.
Yeah.
And I'll just add gratuitously that most of those games were without Lawrence Phillips because that was the Lawrence Phillips controversy year.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyway, back to your dad. He was the leading receiver on that team. It was a rushing team, but he caught some. I mean, he was a leading receiver.
Yeah.
I guess so. Since you were born 3 years after that, you're being raised by him. When did you first know? Did he tell you? Were you very aware early that your dad was, if not a star, a part of an incredible team and time? Or did he keep that away from you?
Yeah, it's like. For the longest time, it's like my dad has a unique name too. Like Clester is like, I only know two Clesters in this world, and it's my dad and older brother. And, just growing up, like hearing stories about my dad, I think his role was really cool too. And, I'm 5'10", 5'11", 185 on a good day, and my dad was just like a tank. He benched 405 in high school as a quarterback, and he was like down south Memphis, just strong and tough, nose to the grindstone, and he actually went in as a quarterback, and he was like the athlete of the year in Nebraska. He wrestled for 1 year and was like 32-1, lost in the state finals, like 1-0. And he won the hurdles and track. So he was just an athlete, and he was gifted. And he took the role as like, okay, I'm in Nebraska. And I think at the time, Steve Taylor was just getting done, playing, and, we're good family friends with Steve and his family as well. And Tommy and Brooke were there, and my dad just kind of knew right away that, it was going to be hard to play as a quarterback at Nebraska. And he took the role as, they don't call it, I don't even think this position is a thing anymore, but the wing back.
Yes.
So when I saw highlights of him, lining up in the slot, and then the next play, like, why are you in fullback position and Amon Green or Lawrence Phillips is behind you and you're cracking the middle linebacker? I just think there was so much more to like that football team that it doesn't show up in the stats. And there's just like, I call them all my uncles and stuff, but just like seeing films of them is like, my dad always told us, like, and I think me and my brothers, we always like garnished this mentality, was like, if he wasn't blocking or like doing the little things, like he wasn't getting the ball. And whenever they got the ball, it was like, you have to do something with it, because you don't know if you're getting a pass like this game or even the next game. So right. I think, and then just growing up, he always had this trophy, and it was like kind of like similar to a replica of the Heisman, but it wasn't quite the Heisman. And I finally read it one day, and he was awarded like the top senior on the 95 team, just by the teammates. And I think that just speaks levels to my dad's work ethic and the type of player he was. And he just was such a team guy. And I think that carried back to us of just like even blocking, like we need to be good at blocking instead of just like all the flashy stuff that you see. So I think, yeah, you don't notice it at a young age, but like as I've grown throughout the years, and we're down at the Lincoln games and people are asking him for pictures, and it's 2026, and the last time he played,
and he was a wingback. I mean, the Clester. Crazy. I loved watching Clester. He was a blast to watch, yeah. And if you can't block, you can't play wide receiver at Nebraska in the 90s. Yeah. But like, I mean, they had Tommy Frazier, Amon Green, Lord Phillips, mm-hmm. And one of the best offensive lines in school history. Then defensive players. Don't get me started. And still, they recognize Cade Johnson 30 years later. Yeah, that tells you something. What's that? What was that like for you as a kid going to Husker games? Because maybe he didn't, remind you of it every day, but then when you would go to the game, you would certainly know. Yeah. Did that make you nervous as a kid? Was it inspiring to follow in his footsteps? And then on top of that, you said you had an uber talented brother as well. Yeah. And by the way, I'll toss in this. Everybody's a receiver. Yes, he was a wingback, and you didn't really catch very many passes at Nebraska, but everybody's a receiver, including your younger brother. Yeah. So how did this all feed into you becoming a receiver? And you obviously deciding to play football and try to follow the footsteps.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me too was like my dad always told us that we were our own selves. And like, I think that spoke measures to each of us as, kids growing up. And I actually tell this story, and some people really don't believe me when I say it, but I didn't actually go out for football until my sophomore year of high school. And so my dad so I was just a basketball guy, and I was small, and I'm like the run of the family. My other brothers are pretty big. And for me, it was like, I was always good as a kid growing up, but then, everybody started growing and I kind of stayed the same. And my dad like encouraged me. He was like, son, like, I did this and CJ's having success at an early age. I think you should give football another try. And so for me, it's like him installing that confidence into me as a sophomore in high school. And then, like at my high school still to this day is like we grew up in Papillion, but my dad went to Bellevue West. So I think it was a lot more pressure for my older brother just carrying that name and having big expectations, because he was really good coming out of junior high, and he was starting as a freshman, and he was just like I said, he was everything and more. And just for my dad, it's like there's one retired number at Bellevue West still to this day, and it's number 1, and that's my father's number. And so I think it was more of a not a pressure thing to live up to him, but just to like want to make him proud and carry on that legacy. And it was never talked about, but I felt like we just all installed it and took that upon ourselves to represent that Johnson name. And it was just, it was so fun. And I couldn't ask for a better high school career, and just growing up in the state of Nebraska, like going back to the games, and just the respect that my dad has, because not only because he was a great football player, especially in those times when there was, guys coming in from every which way and having different backgrounds, and, him given the cards that he was given raised up, but like just being a great guy as well. And he's had success in his career after, just staying in the area and just showing people that, he's not only a great football player, but he's also a really good human being. So,
yeah. Well, you said he was intense, but then you also said he instilled confidence in you. So that it doesn't sound like you felt pressure. You just felt inspired to do what he said you were capable of doing. So was there ever any hardship there, or was it all just, hey, I'm going to play some football. I'm going to do my best. And what was he like? Was because, you've heard of the nightmare or the, helicopter, whatever dads.
Sure.
And how did he fall?
Yeah. And my dad always acknowledges those type of dads. And like, that was his main thing, is like to be present in his kids' lives, but to never just be the one who steers the ship. Like the kids are the one who steers the ship. And just, we always had to have our priorities straight. And I think for him, it was, I said it earlier, but it was like never being content with where we're at. So like, we could look at it like, oh my gosh, like I had 75 yards and a touchdown, but my dad's telling me I have more. And I think that's where it was at, where it was like, like good games or great games. And then just the standard is always being set and always being raised. And I think he had such a unique way of doing it, because he would never like flat out say that, but by actions and words, in the way that, he's communicating to us as boys. And just like, when you have 3 boys that are like similar in age, we were always competing against each other. And I think when it starts in the household, it's like you're keeping it in those walls, and you're like, like we were really just chasing my older brother, and he did a really good job of like not as much friendly competition, but there was competition growing up. And I think he did a good job of, just raising that standard every time it was set, and just like never being content where we're at, and just wanting more and more and more. And so I think,
Sure.
It was honestly beautiful. I don't think he or my mom could have done it any more perfectly than they did. So
They did. Well, you didn't start playing sophomore. You didn't start playing football until your sophomore year of high school. By the senior year, you set school receiving records, 43 catches, 1,000+ yards, 16 touchdowns in probably 12, 13 games, if that. So, And by the way, returned worth 240 yards of returns, 4 interceptions, and on the state championship basketball team. That was your sophomore year. Anyway.
Yep.
So obviously a prolific athletic career, and forgive me if you've already mentioned this. So you're looking toward college. Were you looking more toward basketball or football, or were you more heavily recruited in one of those sports? What kind of steered you into football?
Yeah, it was actually tougher my junior year, because I was on like the top Omaha basketball team in the summer, and I was starting to get a lot of traction on the summer circuit just for basketball. But for me, it was like, and I can't thank him enough, but so my coach at Bellevue West is Michael Huffman, and he has deep Burke ties. So he actually used to coach Jackson way back in the day in high school. And so that's where the connection came in. And Dan started recruiting me when I was, I want to say towards the end of my sophomore year. And like, you're starting to get D2. I was getting D2 offers for basketball, and then SDSU came in for football. And if it was anybody other than Coach Jackson, it might be a whole nother story because he just really embraced me. And like, I can't express this enough, but we started to like form a relationship just way past football. And he was just like so good in just the recruiting journey. And like, one day when he's done with football, like I really want him to like start his own like recruiting 101 classes or whatever it may be, because like him and Missy were just such personable people, and just like Coach Stig and them, that was just like the cherry on top. But just having Jackson in my corner, and like he would show up to school for like basketball games and come on a random winter when it's negative degrees out just to visit and just sit down and talk for 5 to 10 minutes. And I still just remember the day I committed, just because SDSU, even when like my scholarship wasn't always there, they always made me a priority. And I think it just like spoke measures to my whole recruiting process with basketball and football. Is just like out of all the schools, South Dakota State was always number one.
Wow. Okay. But you weren't sure did you eventually get a scholarship offer there?
Yeah. So I got offered my junior year in March. And it's actually a pretty funky story, is like, now that I think about it, but SDSU was only taking 2 receivers in that class. And I was in a boat where my older brother was a 3-star. He was Gatorade Player of the Year, and he had just enrolled in Wyoming and was Coach Bull's like number 1 recruit in that class. And so I got my SDSU offer, and then like a week or 2 after, USD offered me. And then for me, I'm like, okay, like all the ones that you get are going to start coming in, the Ohios and the Wyomings and North Dakota States and North Dakota. And then, the summer circuit came. I went to Wyoming camp, and I thought I was going to get an offer from Coach Bull, but it didn't end up happening. And then they're still my guys to this day, but Patty Devlin and Jacob Brown ended up committing, and they took the 2 wide receiver spots. And then I actually went to USD to commit. And my best friend, who I was playing with at the time in high school, Tristan Ducker, and then they had, I want to say, Kari and then Randy, I think, were in that class as well, that committed as well. So I was out of scholarships. And then at this point, I'm like, Northwest Missouri State, is it this? But SDSU was very adamant about I would have a chance to come in and compete for a scholarship. And so at that point, too, is like, I just felt like a fool because I waited so long, and I had this great opportunity in front of me wanting more. And the whole time it was right there in front of me. But I wouldn't take it back, and this was a huge part of my story. So
sure. Well, it sounds like SDSU stayed with you. They didn't say, sorry, Charlie, you should have, you had your chance.
Mm-hmm.
Was that true? And what did that mean?
Basically, yeah. And I still remember the day that I committed, and it was like, nowadays they have the early signing period, but my senior year, I don't think it was that rule was implemented yet. That maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, that people can sign early. But I still remember it was coming down, and it was like January, and Coach Stig and Coach Jackson showed up at my school, and I hadn't even told my parents yet, but I was like, I know you guys don't have a scholarship for me, but I love South Dakota State, and I've already been on campus. And at that point, I had a really good relationship with Chase Vinatieri, and he was showing me around campus, and me and Cannon Nelson became best friends after that, and going up to Mitchell. And it was just, God's path for me. And I just felt it. It was a moment in time. And I was like, Coach Stig and Coach Jackson, I'm ready to make that commitment. And I still remember the pictures we took in Huffman's office, and it was, the rest is just history from there. So it was awesome.
Very cool. Before we get into your career, what do you suppose held you back from getting even scholarship offers from Wyoming or FCS schools? Height? My guess would be height, because obviously
it was definitely my size. I'm 5'10", and when I was coming out of high school, I was like 160. So I wasn't your prototypical, receiver, just like somebody who can play at a high level. And I love that, honestly. I love how God built me, and just I love everything about it, because it was if I was a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit however much, it would have been totally different. And I think just like that, just like kind of tied into my underdog story and just who I am as a person. So
yeah, took that all the way to the NFL. I mean, there's a lot. By the way, there's a lot of us who wouldn't mind being 5'10" and a good 185. It's not.
Yeah,
I know. In your world, it's not enough a lot of the times, but But you decided to redshirt your freshman year, 2016, and or I don't know if that was your decision, but you did.
Yeah.
And you had a front row seat. Okay, that year it was kind of a breakthrough year for Jackrabbit football.
Mm-hmm.
They beat North Dakota State for the first time in 9 games. An epic last-second win in the Fargo Dome.
I still remember Jake Weineke in the back of the end zone.
Did you get to make the trip?
We did. They red shirts got to travel that game. That was pretty cool.
Okay, you're watching Taryn Christion, who beat out Zach Luan for the quarterback in his first. Well, it's his second year. He's a sophomore. They go to the quarterfinals for the first time, the FCS quarterfinals for the first time in school history, and front row seat to Jake Weineke, Dallas Goedert, other prolific players. So, how would you? What did you absorb that freshman redshirt year?
Oh man. That was honestly amazing. And I think it was so cool just because like the way Brookings is like it's Jackrabbit football and athletics, and it's like a dream to me still. I still wish like I could go back and just like as a redshirt freshman just relive one of those game days. And I remember that was when the Dana J was opening up for the first time, and it was so just special to like see Jake and Dallas out there. And even this was Roseboom's breakout year too, and like I still see like Rosie lives in Omaha now, so I still see him quite a bit, and it was just so special to me to just be able to like see that experience. And then those guys like set the standard and what Jackrabbit football was, and there were so many like guys just that don't get that same recognition that are just like even Lujan, like he showed up and competed every day in practice. And I still remember my first summer there living in farmhouse. And this is before the quarterback battle was even like announced or anything like that. And they were going into fall camp, and Lujan like took all of us freshman receivers, and we had no AC, and took us into the Dana J on our only day off and taught us all the routes and the principles. And he's doing great now still as the OC and at New Mexico. And it's just, like there's so many people just like in that program that deserve so much credit for what they did for that. So,
yeah. By the way, Farmhouse, for those who don't know, is a fraternity, which I find interesting. They had one at the University of Nebraska as well. That the kid from suburbs of Omaha, a fraternity called Farmhouse. Was it mostly rural kids, or just a deceiving name?
I have no idea, honestly. I didn't even know that was a thing. So we learned something new every day.
It was an ag house in Lincoln, but they're different all over, I bet. That's another thing. You're going to South Dakota State University. Let's get on that path just for a second. Was it much of a culture shock to you? I mean, Omaha's not Minneapolis or Chicago, but it's a big city. You're going to a very small town. A lot of the students there are rural. Yeah, you're on a football team with guys from all over the country, all different types.
Yeah. Well, it helped too, because I was raised kind of best of both worlds. Like my mom's from Kearney, Nebraska. So
there we go.
Yeah, okay. She's farm girly, and like my grandparents, they lived on acreage, and like they had horses around and all the things, and we grew up like going to farms and shutting irrigation pipes and all the things. So I think that is like my best quality, is like just being able to adapt to my situations. And I will say Brookings was a little bit of a culture shock, just because like there's nowhere else to go. Like, like you can go to the country in Omaha and it's like 15 minutes outside of where you live, and then come right back to the city and have all the amenities. But I think, it really like makes you like buy into what's there and like the people that are there, and just like building those type of relationships with the people. And I thought it was like the perfect distance for me, because it's still like 3:45, and it was like enough where I like could get in if we had a long weekend, I could get in the car and drive down to Omaha and enjoy some family time. But then it was like far enough where I like, if I was going through some tough times, I really had to hunker down and like embrace my, situation and just like the place that I was at. But I think Brookings is perfect the way it is, because it teaches you like how to grow up and be mature and like be on your own. And it's like it's not a big enough town where it's like you feel like lost or out there. And it's like, I feel like everyone just embraced me when I was there. So
heard that a lot from anybody who's played there. that's an opening for the what does John Stiegelmeier mean to you in your life question. And you can also rattle off first impressions or any stories that stick out.
Yeah, I mean, man, Coach Stig, I was like, I'm just proud that I was able to play for him because he's just a great coach and a great person. And I just think he was everything that is right with college football, and like the whole dynamic of it is different now. And I just like feel so blessed to be at SDSU the time that I was, because he installed just everything in us, and like just us raising us as men. And he really just had an awesome personality and was just, like everything, you just respected him when you walked in the room. And I think the first time just seeing him get mad and not hearing a swear word come out of his mouth, and it's like, holy nutmeg, is like, that was crazy to me because he really does not cuss. And there's other coaches now that it's like they've gone off and been head coaches and it's like completely different. But I just think his discipline and how he is as a person, it's just like, it's not a show. It's like, that's actually who he is. And I think it's just really cool. And I'm just like, he's literally took me in as a son, and there was a lot of growing pains in college. And we sat down multiple times, even before I was like in the limelight, and had like serious real life conversations. And I think you don't get that a lot in football programs. And just to be able to sit there and connect with him on those type of levels, my respect for him just went up every year. And, I would do anything for him. Like he's still to this day, he texts me and checks in, and like he remembers the little things. And I think as a coach of 20 plus years, when you have so many players, it just speaks to your character and who you are as a person. Like you truly care about these players.
Had to surprise you the first time you saw him driving on a moped then.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, with this hockey helmet on. That was hilarious.
That's right. That's all in the book, by the way. I'll give a shout out to
the only one that got handicap parking on the moped. So
as his made famous by his appearance on College Game Day 2019, which we'll get to if we have time.
Yeah.
But you're okay. Sophomore year, you now get to hit the field. It's 2017. I mean, Jake Weineke and Dallas Goedert are still. Goedert's a tight end, but they're the two main receivers, pass catchers.
Goedert was just everything for us at that point. Like, more than a tight end.
Yes, you're a freshman now. You get to play, and within your third game, you're returning a kickoff 95 yards to the house, and you added one more kickoff return for a touchdown that freshman season, which was the first time in 54 years. There had been two kickoff returns for touchdowns by the same guy. But that first one, 95 yards in game 3, Beef Bowl. I mean, what a welcome to college football moment. Take us there.
Oh, man. That still feels like a dream, honestly, is like, I just remember because, how like the circle is so small, because like me and Coach Schleichner were talking about it this year because he's the OC up at New Mexico with Coach Eck being the head coach.
Was he the receivers coach?
He was the tight ends coach at the time, but he was he was the kickoff return coach more specifically.
Okay.
And so Arnheim was my wide receiver coach at the time. And I just remember having conversations with Arnheim is like, with Dallas and Jake here, like all of us young receivers, what are you going to do to separate yourself? Because you're not going to do it as a receiver. Like we have 2,500, 3,000 yards like between these two guys. So I just remember like really honing in. I'm like, I'm going to be the best kickoff returner because I did it in high school. I felt comfortable. And just for me was like, when I got that little sliver of hope and little sliver of opportunity, I was going to do something with it. And just like our kickoff team that year was unbelievable. Like everybody was just so like with the plan and wanted to like make it work. And I think after that kickoff return happened, it just set the standard for the rest of the year and what it was going to be. And just like, hey, just block for 2 to 3 seconds. I got you guys on the back end. And I just feel like that moment was just like so defining in my college career, was like, okay, like I can establish myself as something more on this team and then start to earn these guys' trust around me. And I feel like it just opened up perfectly for me after that. So
what impressions and influences did both Jake Weineke and Dallas Goedert have on you?
Man, I can't.
What was it like to be around them and a teammate and a receiving teammate of those two in their prime?
Well, it's pretty cool because like if you truly know the two guys, they're like completely opposite, but then when they get on the field, it's like they're the same person. And so I like to say it was like the best of both worlds. It's like, Dallas was just like just a really cool dude, and so is Jake, but just those guys, once I started to like kind of perform a little bit, they took me a little bit more serious, and I wasn't just like the class clown anymore, and they just like really embraced me. And then the more and more like as time went on, like Jake is just like I've had some like really vulnerable conversations with him, and he's like I still consider him my big brother. And Dallas the same way is just like always like those guys gave me so much confidence in who I was as a person. I think they don't realize how much they just like installed in me and just wanting to be great like them. And I just think it was really fun. It almost felt like high school football again. It's just like you go out there and just take over. And I just saw the impact they made, and I'm like, I can do that. Like I want to do that. So it was really cool.
I mean, the big moment, anybody who watched the games with Dallas Goedert was a one-handed catch that he made early in the season against Drake. Yeah. It's still there. But did you see what kinds of freak things did you see in practice or on a daily basis that you still remember?
I mean, I feel like Dallas used to get yelled at every day because he would only put one hand up. Like he would never catch it with two hands. And then they're like, in the game, you're going to catch it with two hands, but he was still catching it with one hand. So like Dallas was insane, especially in practice. It's like you just see some of this stuff and you're like, this guy should not be moving like that. He is this big and he's moving like he's my size. And like Jake's the same way, and just like they did it in practice. I think that was like the biggest thing too, is like they did what they did in the game in practice, and they just showed up every day and just set the tone. So it was fun. It was really fun.
But I think most people know what you mean by different personalities, but explain it with a memory or a little bit more vivid detail.
Yeah, I think, so like I'm trying to keep it PG, but like Jake is like, like on a Friday night, like, we're playing cards and staying in the house, and Dallas was, I had the best of both worlds. So Dallas was like a little bit my speed sometimes, where it was like, we're having a good time and enjoying ourselves and all the things. So
I got you.
It was good.
We know what you mean.
Dallas is from Britton, South Dakota, so he knows how to. He knows how to party. He knows how to party. I'll always put it that way.
Okay, you can say it. You're college kids. It's all right.
Yeah. So I still remember too. I think it was my 21st party bus, and we went to like Flanderoo and a bunch of small town, and Dallas was on there. It was a great time.
Man, that would be a great time. Did you live with either of those two?
No, I lived across the street from Dallas, and then I was always over at Jake's house because he would have like dinners every Saturday night. But like it was, man, they just welcomed. I think that was the coolest thing about being in Brookings and like having a moped, is we would just pull up to everyone's house, and you go to one house and it's like there's going to be 4 or 5 players in there, and like just bounce around from house to house. I remember just going down, is it 6th Street or whatever the main street is like,
yes, like you see someone's house and just like, hey, I wonder what they're doing. So you just pull up, and Dallas was the same way. It's like, I just remember always just going to check in on Dallas. He lived like 2 blocks down from me, so it was pretty fun. What about Taryn Christion? Your first 3 years, that was the quarterback. He's only the best there ever was. Either in his demeanor and leadership that you would see, practices, huddles, locker room, or certainly the kind of playmaker he was, the capability that he had to get you the ball. I mean, just give us the Taryn Christion 101.
Yeah, Taryn was just a different dude. Like he was about business, and then he also had a goofy side to him. So like once you like peel back those layers on him, is like you just realize this is just a big goofball. And Taryn I just love Taryn so much. I don't think I have like a bad story to say about Taryn, just because especially the year that I broke the record, like we just connected like on so many things. Okay, I take that back. I have one bad story. After my redshirt freshman year, Taryn got me a job at Dunham's Sports, and I think it's still a thing at Brookings, but he was actually like somewhat of my boss, and he would yell at me because I wasn't doing anything in there. It was just a summer job. That was what I was going to do. And it was just, and that kind of just like helped our relationship, especially on the field, is like working with Taryn that year. And I give props to Taryn because he was into golf before everyone else was. And he's just like, Taryn's like one of a kind. Like I'll probably never meet another Taryn in my life. And he was just so good at football. And then he was same thing. He was just a great person, and he was just fun to be around. So,
what was his superpower as a quarterback that you remember? For you personally, could he throw it on a dime or make it easy for you, or what?
Yeah, and I think it was cool for me because my first year in Seattle, I had Russ, and there was so much similarities in just the way that they played. Is like Taryn was able to like maneuver out of whatever situation and make a play. Like that was my favorite. Type of catches to catch from Taryn is like, hey, we don't have like this route in the book, but like you read me and I read you and I'm finding the open spot and I know it's coming here. And he was just so good off script of just making a play with his legs and either taking it and like Taryn had like he was really fast. He was a really fast guy, and him either, picking up like a super long touchdown or just finding one of us deep down the field. I think he made us work, and it was fun to just learn that from him. So
sure. And again, this is your sophomore season, his senior season, where he basically set a lot of SDSU records, Mo Valley records. That season plus his career, you guys won 11 games, which was the most in the FCS era. That's the year you had the tie for the single season touchdown record was 17. And of course, this was all just a dynamite offense led by Eric Eidness, and it was his last year before he moved on to Northern Illinois. So again, we're just kind of playing the hits here. Eric Eidness and what you remember best about him running the show and your interactions with him.
Yeah, Coach E was so intense, and I think it was cool.
I've heard stories about him on the headset.
Oh my gosh. I just remember the first time him yelling is just like, I was scared myself, and he wasn't even yelling at me. But Coach E is just, he just knows football, and like he knows how to get the good guys the balls, and just like in practice, he knows what the defensive look's going to be. And he was so good at just like adapting to the situations that we were in. And I just have a lot of respect for Coach Eidness because he gave me a chance and an opportunity. And once he saw that I would capitalize on his chances and opportunities, he kept finding different ways to, manipulate the offense and ways to get me the ball. And then to see like Dallas and Jake and even Zach Zenner is just like, those guys are able to have the same type of seasons that they had because of the play calling and just the way that it is. And I think like the guys, like, cause Coach Eck was my OC my senior year, and like Lujan, has worked his way up, and just like, you just see some of the plays still, and it feels like a Coach E offense still. And obviously he's the OC now, but like, I just still remember those plays, and he's just a great coach. I can't say enough great things about Coach Eidness, and he has a great family as well. So
sure, he moved on, but we know you kind of said it. Like, you have Zach Zenner, okay, we'll be more of a running team. We'll lean into that. That's exactly. A pretty smart move. You have Darren Christion and Jake Weineke, Dallas Goedert and Cade Johnson. Yeah, we'll throw the ball a little bit more. We'll make that work. And then, you go into your junior year of 2019, Eidness is gone. Taryn Christion is gone. Jason Eck, now the head coach at New Mexico, moves up from O-line to OC, and I just cannot wait to hear a story or two about Jason Eck as the in charge of the offense, especially his first year.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Coach Eck. I can't say enough things about Coach Eck. And you hit this on the head earlier. So my little brother, he went to Kansas State, but then his last year, I kind of asked him nicely to go to New Mexico. So he played one season with Coach Eck. So I was able to see Coach Eck 4 or 5 times this year. And it's a crazy story because Keagan, he left and got in the transfer portal for the second time. And it was one of those things where he was dealing with coaching changes and injuries, and he was still getting like some bigger like Michigan States and Stanfords and Kansases to like go to school there. And I remember New Mexico, Coach Eck texted me and was like, hey, we have a spot for your little brother. He'll be featured. He'll be our number one guy. And I think that hit it right on the head. Is like Coach Eck is a man of his word. And his confidence, his confidence is just gleaming. And I just being around him, it makes you want to be confident. And I just think he has that swagger as just big dude, and he just knows exactly who he is. And I think, that's the funniest thing is like one of my teammates took a video of him one day, and it was like we had just got done with, they called it Hell Week, and he was in the locker room, and I just remember he had one shoe on and one shoe off, and his hair was all over the place. It looked like he had just slept at the facility. And I think that's just like Coach Eck is like really willing to do whatever to like see his success and just see all of us be successful. And I think, he set the tone, and like it speaks volumes to how he's climaxed in his career, because like I told him this year, I'm like, you're going places. Like, I know you know this, but you're going places. So it was really cool.
It's been fun to watch him on social media. For
sure. He's got the social media down to it. He's got the tweets. He's got the IGs, and his wife Kimberly, she does a good job of keeping him down. So it's really good.
Sure. And so we'll go back to that year when he's just a first-time offensive coordinator. And interesting year, 2019. You're coming off that 11-win season the year before. Mm-hmm. You have a new quarterback in Jabari Gibbs. You guys should have you guys had Minnesota in that first game, 28-21, and Jabari had a couple turnovers. But and if you want to go through that, we can. But he was a highly touted athletic quarterback, and he got better. And then he gets hurt in the North Dakota State game, your 8th game of the year. And things just kind of changed the rest of the year. But, how would you describe the navigation of all those events that would turn out to be your last season there?
Yeah, which is crazy to think, because, like productive wise, I had the same amount of yards, but
you were first team All-American.
Yeah, the touchdowns weren't as much there. And I still remember, I think I had 2 or 3 that year that got called back, because I housed a kickoff return against Minnesota, and right before half was over, and it got called back from a holding call. So that was like one of the saddest plays of my career. But that, I feel like that year still taught me a lot, because like we were like the senior class that year was great. You had the Mikey Daniels, and that was Roseboom's last year, and Luke Sellers and Ryan Erith, and it was still a really fun year. And obviously, like, it just sucked. And I felt like our cards weren't as great, because I think we played Northern Iowa the last game and then played them the next game in the playoffs. And so it was still a really fun year though. Like, I had a lot of fun, and it was, it taught me a lot, and it was fun to like kind of take that next step. And it's like, okay, this isn't, like, my year last year wasn't just a fluke, and I can be this type of player all the time. And I think just being more of a leader instead of like going out there and surprising people was a big step for my like athletic career. So,
and here we go. Plenty of excitement coming into the 2020 season. Mm-hmm. And then COVID hit. It affected everybody on the planet. How do you recall it affecting you, your teammates, and everybody, knowing that for the FCS, they canceled that fall, or at least certainly at SDSU.
Yeah, it was really tough, especially for me. I'm a young guy, so I'm like, I don't know what's next. And I felt like, not to be like braggy or arrogant or boastful, but like it was tough for me, because I felt like I had like a different situation than everyone else, where it was like, and it was actually Coach Eck is the one that we sat down and had a conversation about me getting in the portal and just seeing if there was a spot for me to land that fall, because, I had really good draft grades. Like, when you're at a small school, and there was like 5 of us that year that got invited to the Senior Bowl, but it was like one of those things where it was like, what do you do? Like, nobody knows. And I think for me is just like, it just sucks, because I feel like there was so much unfinished business left in Brookings, but just the way that the world was playing out, it was really out of my hands. So
in what way?
I just feel like,
because there was a spring season. I don't know the timeline, but,
I just felt like just where I was at in my football career, that I was ready to either play that season or move on and go to to the NFL, because for a lot of those guys, they didn't get a declare until like 2 years on. And I don't know. I just felt like at that moment I was going to put my best foot forward, and everybody at SDSU was so supportive of me, especially Coach Stig. And I think once you start to have those conversations, it's just a whole different, element, and you can't make those decisions unless you're in them. And so for me, like, there was a lot of people that, questioned me and were like, are you just going to give up on this? And I'm like, like, I love SDSU. I would never take anything back from my years here. But on top of that, like, I have a real opportunity to play in the NFL now. And I just felt like that was God's calling for me. So.
Sure. I mean, and of course that was Mark Gronowski's first campaign, and all the way to the national championship game. But it sounds to me like you're still at peace with that, or is there part of you that kind of wishes you were?
Yeah, it's tough. I remember when I was in Seattle watching that game, like, I'm doing OTAs and just watching my guys down in Frisco, and it sucks still to this day, because, like, all my best friends, my guys that I was in the redshirt class with, like, they were all doing it, and like, I'm truly sad that they didn't win that national championship, but just to be able to go and, like, have that experience was really cool to see. And like, I'm the type of person that, everything happens for a reason, and I've had the experiences I've had, and I wouldn't change anything about it, just because this is part of my story. And obviously, you always have the what ifs, but I really don't live my life with the what ifs. So
Where good attitude. Where were you when you saw the 2022 national championship unfold, and Stig gets to hold the trophy and what turns out to be his last game? What were your emotions?
I was still in Seattle when that game was happening, and I just remember it honestly felt like a dream. And I think we had a game, or there was a way that I wasn't able to go to the game, obviously, but it was so just, like, cool to just see Stig up there and go out on, because there was no other person that deserved that national championship trophy more than Stig before he won it. And it was just so cool for the program and the university, because all of the years of the hard work, and from the D2s to the FCS and all the former players that are now coaches, it just, like, was so cool to see everybody get a piece of the pie, and the fruits of the labor just, like, finally paid off. It was so cool. So.
And what do you make of Dan Jackson, the guy who recruited you?
Yeah.
You're part of the Nebraska Jacks movement, and now the head coach, and heading into his second season. What do you make of Dan being the guy?
Yeah, I want him to, like, stay put for as long as he can, because it's just so cool to just see he finally gets the shot. And there was, like, after Coach Rogers left, there was no better person that Sell could have hired to be the head coach, and Coach Jackson. And I just know, like, just from last year to this year, it's like I know he's motivated, and he's ready to just take that next step again, and put SDSU back to where they were. And I love Coach Jackson. Like, I love him more than as a person than a coach. And he's just there. I couldn't say any more great things about him, because I know he's got that program going in the right direction. So
just a couple more. I mean, I can't help but asking you, going back to that period of time, the COVID, the decision to forego your senior year, take the NFL opportunity. And this was all right before, Wild Wild West NIL gets passed.
Yeah.
So I have to wonder, I mean, you would have been a hot commodity for some Power 4 teams and NIL after both your sophomore and junior seasons. And I think that's a safe thing to say. So do you think you would have transferred for six-figure money, or stayed at SDSU?
It was actually pretty interesting, because I was able to get into the portal before I declared. And so I have some wild recruiting stories just based off of my experiences within those 2 to 3 years. So before, COVID hits, I talked to my coach, I talked to Stig, I talked to Eck, and we're talking about, let's not close the door on all possibilities. And so I got in the portal before it was a cool thing to do. And at the time I'm getting calls from Tom Herman at Texas, Mike Norvell at Florida State. My last day in the portal, I got an LSU offer, and then Coach Stig and Coach Johnson at the time, he was the pro liaison. He's at Iowa State now. They came down, and the Senior Bowl sent them down and had a film crew film me getting my Senior Bowl invite. So then at that point, it was so easy to make a decision because I was like, all these like schools that I never got offers from, and I could only have dreamed of playing there. And I remember Minnesota was probably my number one school because me and PJ started to talk every day and have a really good relationship. But at the same time, it's like looking back at it, I'm happy that I just went to South Dakota State because I can just claim that I was just a Jackrabbit. And I feel like that's so rare to say nowadays, like with the kids going to college is like, hey, you're going to at least 2 to 3 colleges, but to like just stamp SDSU as the only school that I went to. But again, it's always interesting to just see like the NIL nowadays, but it takes away from the college tradition and just the way that college football needs to be. And I'm happy players are getting compensated for what they deserve, but at the same time, it just seems like there's no caps or rules or morals. And I think morals are the biggest thing. So
we've had a chance over the last hour plus to get a few good stories or insight into Jim Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, Josh Allen, and basically a who's who of Jackrabbit football. But you've mentioned Russell Wilson. First 2 years in Seattle, he was the quarterback, or first season.
mm-hmm.
What do you remember most about being around him? Good or bad? Because, he's got an interesting reputation.
I would just say for me, not good or bad, but great, because Russ he's a pro's pro. And I think, from the outside looking in, you could always judge a book by its cover. But when you truly know the person and who he is, I could still text him to this day and he would hit me right back. And he's just a great guy. Like, he means well, and like his morals, like it's not just a show, because when the doors are closed and he's behind closed doors, like he's the same person. And so I really respect Russ a lot for who he is as a person, and just, like taking us all under his wings. Like, a big reason why I picked Seattle, they didn't have a lot of receiver debt. And I think for me is like, you don't really get a redshirt year in the NFL. It's either you're with the program or you're not. And I think I had as close to a redshirt season as I possibly could have in the NFL. And just like having a leader like that at the realm, he teaches you. And I think my career would have been different if Russ wasn't there, because he taught me what the standard meant and he set that. And that was how I wanted to be. So, well,
and then Geno Smith, your last couple of years. And as we mentioned at the top, cut practice squad, practice squad, but they clearly still wanted you around. And then you finally, like week 18, your second season, you get some NFL catches. What was that moment like for you? Do you remember a conversation with your dad or brothers after that? Just making some catches in an NFL game. The 5'10" kid who had troubles getting scholarship offers to FCS schools.
Yeah, no, it was crazy because my second year, we didn't have any expectations, and there wasn't really many roles. Like, we had DK and Tyler, and they were the guys, but other than that, it was kind of, like I got to see Kenneth Walker's breakout year and other guys like that. So just being around those guys. And then I had an active game week 6 against the Giants, but I just remember I got in for 2 knee downs, and that was kind of crappy. And then we got to week 17, so we played the Jets before we played the Rams. And against the Jets, I ran a curl route, and it was probably 15 yards, and Sauce Gardner got his just super long arms and hit the ball. And I'm like, I need another chance. And then my opportunity came the next week in a 2-minute drive that we ended up winning the game to go to the playoffs. It was cool. And then, coming back, so I was at my third active game in the NFL. When you're in the practice squad, you only get 3 active games before they either have to sign you or like cut you, and they find somebody else. And it was cool because Seattle was like, you still have your spot for the playoffs and you're going to start. And so it all just kind of came together at the right time. And I make this joke all the time, but so I had a good playoff game, and then going into the next season, it was like the GM and the head coach, and they tell you like they're excited for your position and where you're at. And then 2 weeks later they draft JSN. So it was I got a good replacement for me, but it was a little bitter. But nowadays it's like I look back and Jackson's like a little brother to me, and I talk to him every week, and it's just crazy how the NFL works.
Were you able to enjoy the Seahawks Super Bowl title with
I was happy
some of those guys?
Yeah. No, I was happy for my guys because it was like 75% of the team that when I was there was still there. So there was a lot of guys that I knew were deserving. Like, obviously, I'm a tiny bit of a salty ex because it's like, why couldn't we get there when I was there? But at the same time, it was just cool to see just like even the support staff. Like, I don't think people realize like Pete and the coaches are the only ones that left that building when Pete got done because the front office is still there. They kept the strength coaches and the, athletic trainers, and then a lot of the team was still there. They just put the right pieces into play. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, hey, this was great. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for all your stories. And I know everybody's really happy for you, still rooting for you if there's more football left. But congratulations on finding a pretty good gig with some pretty sweet people for whatever comes next. You certainly have earned it.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate it. And thanks for the time today. I always enjoy just talking about my experiences in South Dakota because, it's a big part of my story. And I can't say enough great things about just everybody in South Dakota. So I love everybody. And I'm excited to get back there this fall. I keep telling Coach Jackson, I'm coming to fall camp and I'm picking a game. So. I
mean, I work for the Sioux Falls Canaries. They're coming to the Canaries game on Thursday night in Sioux Falls. You could come on up and say hi to him and all the other guys on Thursday night if you want.
Love it. Love
it. He's Cade Johnson. Stay right there, Cade, to make sure everybody else gets to enjoy this conversation. But that's it for today's show. For video producer Cordell Wright, I'm John Gaskins. Happy hour and cheers.